right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Katie Monahan, and I'm a communications strategist here at the Ohio Arts Council. And I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Going Virtual, Moving Work and Programming Online. So before we dive into the main presentation, there are just a few things that I want to mention. First, if you're a frequent OAC webinar attendee, you may have noticed that today's setup is a little bit different than usual. That's because we are in a Zoom meeting instead of a Zoom webinar, so you'll see a few more options available to you there in your control panel. We're going to kind of mix it up a little bit today and actually have you be able to engage with some of these functions as we get to those parts in the webinar. So that should be really fun and informative, and we absolutely encourage you to participate when we reach those portions of the webinar. That said, out of respect for our presenter and our other attendees, we just ask that you please keep your videos turned off and keep yourselves muted throughout the presentation, just to kind of keep things from being distracting. Unless, of course, our lovely presenter asks you to do otherwise. So if you have a question at any point, go ahead and drop it in the chat. I'll be monitoring those throughout, and we'll leave plenty of time to answer all of them as in the dedicated Q&A session at the end there. All right, let's see what else. We are recording today's presentation, so you can find the recording available on our webinars page at oac.ohio.gov/webinars and on our YouTube channel by early next week. Okay, I think that does it for housekeeping and tech items. So now I am really pleased to welcome today's presenter, Beth Flowers. Beth is the director of the Air Institute of Berea College, where she's at the forefront of connecting artists and creatives to their communities in new ways that raise the value of art and creativity. Beth is a creative force. She is an incredibly engaging and knowledgeable presenter and a self-described squirrel whisperer. I saw that in her bio, and maybe if there is time, she will have time to elaborate on what exactly that means. But clearly a woman of many talents. We are really lucky to have Beth here with us today to help us embrace this virtual world and create some really quality online programming. So Beth, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I will let you take it from here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And it's a delight to see everyone, even though I can't see all of you, I can see some of you. And yeah, I'll already break Katie's rule right at the beginning, which is to say, we're going to try and be pretty interactive here. So definitely feel free to keep your video on or off as we go through things. But to get things started, here's what we're going to do. We've got an hour together. So we're going to make some time for us to think about what is hard and what is fun about the moment that we're in together. So I'm gonna go through some, taking some reflective time to think about your programming and how you are actually functioning during this crazy pandemic moment that we're in. And then we're gonna dig into some actual tips for how to think about reprogramming your organizations, your work, the things that you do, so that you can get a chance to think about, what do I need to be asking? How do I need to be shifting? What can this look like? And then we're going to dig into some really specific tips for how to use Zoom, how to use other virtual tools. But I will tell you right from the beginning that my bias is for Zoom. I have tried many of the platforms that are out there, and it is the most stable of all of the ones that there are. So I'm definitely a Zoom biased person. And I think one of the things that most of us don't really realize is how much is under the hood of Zoom. Most of us have all been on a meeting. We've probably been on many meetings, but Zoom doesn't do a very good job of telling their story about what it is that you can do to really make this time where we're able to communicate across all sorts of crazy lines virtually, how to do that well. So we're going to dig into some tips about how to do that well. And then finally, I'm going to do some best practice examples of how people are actually moving galleries, festivals, craft shows, and of course, workshops and meetings and programs like that online. So we'll have some examples of those as well. But I'm going to keep us moving quickly. But I want everybody to take a big, deep breath right now. Like, just really take a deep breath, because whoo, baby, this is some hard stuff that we're all experiencing right now. And I think the most important thing that all of us, particularly those of us who are creatives and artists, do is to help all of us have a moment of grace. This is a very strange, and also there's some silver linings to this time that we have together. But what's really important is for us to have patience with each other and with ourselves. None of us are good at this. This is all brand new. And we're all having to basically learn a whole new language, because we don't know how to communicate like this. We don't know how to read things online, and it's hard. So imagine that the whole world is doing this all at the same time. Well, that means that we're going to make mistakes, and that we're going to get lost in the process a little bit. So being able to give yourself forgiveness for not knowing all of the Zoom tools, or for being scared of them. I mean, you know, I got to say, every time I do one of these, I'm always surprised at what accidentally breaks that you never could have imagined breaks. And so what we have to do is just give each other a little moment to have things unfold as they will. So this is a really important time for all of us to practice empathy. Now, some of us were better at that than others to begin with, but it's even harder when we're online, because we have to watch, you know, right now there's, I don't know how many of us are on, I can't see right now, but there's like 60 of us online together. We can't, that's not the same as being in the same room with each other. So it's harder, but we've got to practice it to get better at it. So in order to do that, we are hopefully going to do a few things to get a little bit more comfortable. So I'm going to, for some of you, this may be review, but maybe not. So I want to make sure that you know how to control the screen that you're watching right now. So if you are looking at your Zoom controls, you should be able to see different views that you have access to. You have gallery view and you have speaker view. Now, right now I'm spotlighted, which means that you get to see me big and in full life size, but you can switch your view to a gallery view. And that means that you can see more of the people who are online. The other thing that you can do is you can actually move things around. If you have done the Zoom update, you should be able to make your slideshow. You should be able to grab a hold of the edge of the slide, and you can make it bigger or smaller, which gives you more room to see the gallery and the people who may or may not have their cameras on. But look at that, you have control. You can make the slideshow really tiny so that you can see all the people, or you can make it big. So those are some really quick little tips. Right now, though, I'd love for you to do some other things too, which is to go ahead and rename yourself. If you look at the, in your little square, you should see 3 dots at the right-hand side of your little square of yourself. And if you click on that, you should see some things like rename. So you can actually rename yourself. I'm going to rename myself, and I'm going to add a little bit of information. I'm in Frederick, Maryland. So now you can see that I'm in Frederick, Maryland. So go ahead and take a second. Imagine how this can be useful in a meeting or anything that you're doing. Frankly, it's a chance to share a little bit more about yourself just by renaming yourself. So one other thing that you can do is you can use the chat. Many of you have probably done that already before, but take a moment to go ahead and check out the chat features. Go ahead and put a hello into the chat. And note that you can actually send a chat to an individual person. You can send it to the whole group or just to one person. Now, I'm going to give you a quick tip. Since this is being recorded, all of those chats, even the ones that are private between you and another person, Those are all recorded too. So don't be snarky and mean in your little chats, because we can actually see them later. But it's cool that you can actually communicate. And sometimes that's a really helpful bit of information. It's how you can share amongst yourselves while you're doing activities together. The other thing I'd love for you to do is to go ahead and click on participants. Now, this should pull up for you. When you click on that, you will see the list of everybody who's in here. How cool is that? So what's amazing about that is you actually have some other tools within there. You can see there that you can raise your hand. You can actually say yes or no. You can do all sorts of little things in there. I also have power because I'm a co-host. I can actually mute you. If you're not muted, I can mute you right there. So if you click on the more there, that allows you to figure out exactly what you're doing. But it's nice for us, and for us as hosts, it's really helpful to know that we can communicate with you. We can help you with your questions and things like that using that participant little tab, as well as the chat tab. And then the final thing that I'd like for you to take a look at is to go ahead and, oops, I went ahead too fast, is to use your reactions. So I bet that some of you have been able to use these before. So if you haven't found them, if those of you who have found your reactions, you might need to click on your more options, but go ahead and put a heart up on the screen. Or clap your hands. It's awesome. This is another way to show, and if you've done your Zoom updates, you know that you have a party, a little party explosion and hearts and things. So this is a really sad but true truth about Zoom. They do not tell you when they do updates. So you have to do this on your own. And I swear to you, I had to do one today, even though I update once a week, because just randomly Zoom will post a new update. So you just need to go to your Zoom profile and your settings and go ahead and click to make sure that you're always in the most updated version, because they're always releasing awesome new things to do. So we've done a few little fun things, I hope, that are making you realize that, wow, there's more to Zoom than you realized, and you have more control than you realized about what you're seeing on the screen. So I'm going to move back into our next piece, which is to start talking about what do we do now? Now that we're trying to figure out how can we use these online tools, and what we always start with, because all of our programs, frankly, were designed to be in person. And so this was a huge moment and change to suddenly have to move everything online if we wanted to be reaching our artists and our communities. So we started with what we teach about, which is design thinking, and that starts with empathy for us. So design thinking is just the creative process, but it's focused on the audience, the client, the person who you're trying to serve, the community you're trying to serve, and it's all about empathy. So it's what do we need from the programming that we're offering right now? Now, this is also a moment when we have to be super honest with ourselves, because everything is really confusing right now. And we have to ask a really hard question. Is our program necessary? Is it needed right now? Are the things that we're doing, were they working before COVID? Because if they weren't working before COVID, they probably aren't going to work after COVID unless we change them and really dig into our creative side and take this as a moment for innovation and really digging into what our audience and what our clients and what the people who want what we make as creatives actually want and need. And we know that this time, all of you, I'm sure, have experienced this. I know I have. I need art more than I've ever needed it ever in my life. It is more important to me to feel, to understand, to listen, and to have other people's experiences help me through this process. So it's not that art isn't needed. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't want that to be misconstrued. What I am saying is the way that we've been delivering our programming, or the way that we've been selling our art, has it been working? And is this a moment in time for us to change that? So design thinking is a process, and it starts, as I said, with empathy. We're going to start with, what does our audience need? What does our client need? And then we're going to start to define, what is it that we can do? What is it? Is it a gallery show? Is it a concert that we need to put on? Is it a book that we're trying to write but we need feedback on? So we're also then going to move into brainstorming. How do we make this happen best? And then this is the really important key to design thinking. It's all about prototyping and testing before we go any farther. So one thing that's both wonderful and horrible about this moment is nothing is ever the same. So every time you think that you've designed and redesigned a program for an online audience, it breaks. And the world shifts a little bit, and you have to just be in that place of grace and empathy for yourself, which is to say, it's okay, I'm going to try it again. This is what the design process is all about. I've got to keep going back to, what do people need? How can I deliver that? And what does that look like going forward? So it can be painful, but it's also what we should be doing as creatives anyway. So one of the things that is helpful at this time is to get information from our audience and our clients. And that means in some cases using polling. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can get information from your audience, from your clients, from your community, or from other artists who you're trying to collaborate with about what is working and what's not. And I highly encourage you to be using survey tools as often as you can. We now survey, I mean, not that we weren't before, but even more and in more detail, we're surveying after every single class we do, after every program we do, because we know that the world is shifting, and how we're responding online, how we're responding to content delivery, how we're responding to being engaged is changing all the time. So we have to really be listening, and we have to listen to things that are hard to hear. So Zoom actually has polling built into it. You may not know that, but if you have a Zoom account, you can actually do polls. You have to set them up ahead of time. And for you, what's funky about Zoom is most of you are probably on computers. Some of you may be on a tablet or a phone. Those are all great, and there are apps that work really well. But if you're going to be hosting a program, you want to be on either a laptop or a desktop, because the tools that are available to you are stronger. They're easier for you to use, and polling is one of those. Now, when you do polling, you can't actually do it within the Zoom apps that we're all using. You have to go to zoom.us, to the online, to their actual website to set up your poll. And you'll see when you pull Zoom US up, you'll see that and you log in, you'll have a menu on the left-hand side of the screen, and you just need to click on meetings. And then you click on personal room, and then you'll click on polls. It's not hard once you're there, and then you can just start to create a poll on your own. Google Forms also is free and has awesome polling opportunities. Again, they're free. It's easy to collect data that way. SurveyMonkey has free versions. And of course, I'm sure many of you are using or have used social media to actually do that functionality too. You can do a poll on Facebook. And these are all great ways to collect data. Something to think about when you're doing your polling is whether you want to, how honest you want people to be. The more anonymous, the more, in theory, honest, but sometimes honest to the point of having a gripe that maybe is out of whack with what the real experience is. So you're going to have to decide for yourself. And in some cases, you're going to want to have anonymous polls so that you really get a really good taste of what people are feeling and thinking. And sometimes you want to actually dig in deeper. So you're going to want to ask for people's names so that you can have a dialogue about the conversation. So we're going to actually do a quick poll right now, and Katie is going to pull up a poll that we have for you. So you should now see that there's a poll on the screen, and there are 4 questions. You will need to answer. You can answer more than once. You can pick different things. The first one is I work or volunteer for, and you can say myself, arts organizations. You can pick as many of those as you like, but go ahead and do this poll. We're going to just give you a couple of minutes for you to fill out that poll, and you should be able to submit at the end. And you will see when Katie gets ready. If you want to go ahead and just raise your hand when you're done with the poll, that'll give us a chance, or clap your hands, either use a reaction or a participant tool if you would like. We can see, ooh, it's so exciting. We can see the back end because we're co-hosts, so we can see you actually populating this survey. But Katie, when you're ready, just give folks a heads up that you're going to close the poll, and we'll show you the results.
Yeah, Beth, it looks like we're almost a little over halfway done. The results are rolling in quickly. So we'll give everybody let's do about 10 more seconds here, and then we'll go ahead and close the poll.
And don't feel bad. This isn't a test. It's mostly just to show you some of the tools that are available to you on Zoom.
Someone commented in the chat, what team? We may have a one-man show here. Quite a few of those.
Yes, and I'm in that boat too. We're, it's a fascinating time.
All right, I am going to close this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Here we go, Beth.
Awesome. So now you can see the live results. You can see that there were more of you who are affiliated with arts organizations than anything else. That shows up as a red winner. You also have control. You can scroll through this poll, as you could see when you set it up. You can also you can click your little red button there and get rid of it and not look at it again. But it looks like many of you are interested in workshops or classes more than anything. And yay, it's good to see that excited wins for my team is blank to go virtual. And it's also good to see that lots of you are doing some communication with your audiences. Only a few of you, only 3% of you said that you haven't communicated with my audience since the pandemic. So good information, and hopefully that gives you a sense that, oh, there is more underneath the hood of Zoom, just in terms of polling. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to talk about more, which is doing research. So once you've decided that you want to move something online, you've started thinking about your design process, you've thought about your audience, and you've got some ideas, then the research really kicks in. And this is, to me, this is actually, for me, a fun part, which is starting to learn who is doing what. I can't stress enough how embarrassingly wonderful it is to type stuff into Google and have magic things show up into your feed that say, you know, who is doing online gallery openings. Stuff comes up. And so I encourage you to start with artists and other organizations that are like us, who are doing wonderful things. And I, of course, I'm going to share some of those that I know about as well. But dig out into your network. You would be surprised in, frankly, some pretty small and unexpected places. People are really embracing what can happen online. And the more that you see today, what's possible, even just with Zoom, for free, I mean, essentially basically free. Zoom, you know, it doesn't cost much money to have a professional account. And it's so invaluable. And then the other thing that I want to give a shout out to is something that I do not do. I am not a gamer, but I am starting to become a gamer because holy smokes, there's a whole world of people who know how to be online. They know how to communicate. They know how to have fun. They're telling stories and doing wonderful things. And we have a lot to learn from the world of video games. So I encourage you to talk to your friends, children, grandchildren, and neighbors about what games they like and what you can learn from that. It makes a huge difference in our mindset if we can start to meet, some of the folks who frankly are having an easier time of going online than maybe some of us are. So dig into what is out there. The other thing that I think is so important when we're starting to decide how we move online is to start with what we're trying to accomplish. What does it look like to succeed? Is our goal to just have as many people as possible see our work? Or is our goal to help other people? How many? Is it the quality of the time that we spend together online? What does success actually look like? In our program, we use a project canvas. Every time we work with the community, we help them work on how to design projects. And so we start with really simple things that is just a one double-sided page that has, let's establish our goals. What's the goal of this online workshop that we're doing? What is it about? Describe it to a certain degree. What does success look like? Who's the audience? Who are our potential partners? What's our marketing goal? And what's our strategy for marketing? And what's our staffing plan? Is there a budget? And what is the timeline? So just going through those really basic project management tools for us before we move a project online makes all the difference in the world. It means that we get closer to success faster, and we identify people who can help us make it happen, including our audience, but really uncovering partners who are struggling and also excited by doing the same thing too. So this is not a time to be a perfectionist. If there's anything that this time is, it's a humbling, important time for us to realize, as much as we wish it could be perfect, it's way more important that we get people online and doing things together than anything. We need to, again, go back to that grace and empathy. We need to make mistakes. We can only learn from mistakes. We don't learn anything if it just succeeds all the time. We just know that we think, we don't know what exactly went well. We just know it went well, we think. But this is such an important time to give yourself a break and allow for things to break. You wouldn't believe the amount of time that Katie and I spent today fixing something that broke earlier today that we got fixed by the time, our workshop started. But you just have to roll with it and figure out a backup plan, because something is always going to be a little bit wonky in this. The other thing is, you got to be prepared to cancel. I work across the country, and I work in a lot of different states, and I mostly serve rural populations. And this week I was on multiple calls with two messages that were important to me for me to hear about my programming. One is that I was on a call in Kentucky where half the people on the call, these were trained facilitators who are using our programs regularly in their communities. Half the people who were on the call had an immediate family member who had COVID. Half. Like that's the reality that we're facing right now. That's frightening for people. It's of course frightening for all of us when we experience it right in our own family, but it's frightening for people out in the communities. The other thing is that the elections have raised people's level of anxiety as well. So sometimes we have to accept that it's not the right time to do the program that we are desperate to do. Now, the only way we know that is to ask our people. We have to ask our people, are you ready? Will you come to this workshop? Do you have the headspace for this to happen? So it's really important to be asking everyone who you're engaged with whether this is the right time. And to also remember that you're not going to get it perfect. But changing your programming to be mindful of the moment is really key. And again, that empathy piece comes in so importantly. Because I do believe that one of our roles as creatives and artists is that we have a leadership moment here to help people get comfortable with being online. We've got to have fun. We've got to encourage this because this is not going to go away, as we are all realizing. It is likely that there's another year at least of time where we are going to be in some way likely using online sources and avenues in a way that we certainly weren't before. Doesn't mean that we won't be able to move to hybrid options and some in-person options, but having this backup plan of how do we move something online if there's a surge? How do we move something online if it just doesn't feel right? Those are all things that we have to do. And for us as creatives, if we're not having fun online, well, geez, nobody is going to have fun online because we've got to get as comfortable as we can doing that. So I'm going to jump into some delivery tips, unless Katie tells me that there are any of these questions that she thinks I need to address right at this minute. I'm going to keep going. So here's the thing about moving your programming online. Everything takes twice as long as it did before. And that means the design of your program and your project, but also the actual programming takes longer. Unless it's a concert, that where you're playing, you know, the same music, generally there's extra time to get your audience comfortable in the setting. There may be tech that breaks midway through, and then you want to make sure that they're happy on the other end. So just budgeting for yourself that things are going to take longer. But on the other side of that, that's kind of hard, is that our attention spans are actually shorter because, as I mentioned, we're all learning a new language. We don't know how to do this as well as we used to. And because emotional intelligence is harder, it means it's harder for us to be online. The other thing that I think is really important, we've done it now multiple times in programs since March, is we've changed our programming when current events cause us to need to take a pause. And I don't mean we cancel the event, we change what we were going to do. Instead of having class, we have a conversation about what's happening in the world, to acknowledge that the world is real and that we can't just go on with everything and expect us all to sort of magically recover and be perfect right now. We aren't. We're, a lot of us, struggling with significant mental health issues, family issues, all sorts of things. So being able to change that conversation and allow for that, I think just makes it real. I have not once found that to be a bad decision to change from my actual programming to a conversation that allows for people to share how they're feeling, share what they're thinking, what they're afraid of, because it allows us to process. Even though we wish we could be doing that sort of thing in person, we can't right now in many cases. So I encourage you to take that step. I've heard from multiple people as well who've thanked us for taking that step, because there are certainly industries and businesses and people who are choosing to pretend that life is not happening in any different way. So allowing for the dog, the cat to come in, your kids to run in, for the smoke detector to go off and you suddenly have to figure it out. You know, this is real life and we can't pretend that it's not real life at this moment. So allowing for that. The other thing that I find helps so much is to start with some tech training at the beginning of every single program. Even if it's with people who you're working with, if you're doing a multi-series workshop or event that has multiple days, providing tech training at the beginning of every program or every day just gives everybody a little moment to relax. The other thing is to always have a co-host. Don't do any of this alone. Katie and I have been working together to figure out exactly how we're going to make sure this functions. We know what each of our roles are, because you can't be expected to know what 66 people want to hear about as we keep going forward. So that's important to have that backup for yourself. Katie, were you going to say something? Okay. See, we have that mind meld going on. I can see her now. But another thing that's actually really cool about Zoom and the ability to be online is, hey, I'm with you. And many of you, I bet, are not near each other, but we're all online together. And we normally wouldn't be doing that. So it allows us to actually connect in ways, in a way that we're starting to get more comfortable with, that we would never do before. You know, like, yeah, you'd watch a webinar, but you hadn't really been trying to engage and imagine that that's a real thing. And now that has changed. The other thing that's wonderful is that Zoom and many of the other platforms are allowing for closed caption services to be used. And if you haven't found some of the wonderful apps that are out there that you can actually use, that are you can use on your phone, that will close caption what you're saying. So if you're with someone who's hearing impaired, they can read what you are saying on your phone. A friend of mine who is a low talker really struggles when she's wearing a mask that people can't hear her. So she uses her phone so that people can understand what she's saying behind that mask. Well, we have that advantage now here on this technology. So that is awesome. Also, as some of you learned earlier, the fact that you can make the slideshow as big or as little as you want means you can sort of really lean in a way that you couldn't in a normal workshop setting. So the big message about all of this is that I'm online every day. I teach every day online, and I'm still messing up, and I'm still getting comfortable, and the tools are changing as apparently we learn hourly. So practice, practice, practice. You know, that's always been our mantra as artists anyway. That's how we get good at our craft, and we just have to do it again with this new language that we're learning here. So some of you have asked questions about registration. And so I'm going to do some quick overviews about registration trips. Zoom actually has a registration function that you all used to get to this program. And it's pretty strong. And in fact, you can have all sorts of survey questions added. You can customize what you ask your registrants. So you can actually do some of that data collection before you have a workshop or a class or a performance to find out what people are looking for, which is great. The other thing that's just really truth, and we knew this was true in life before COVID, free means not as many people show up as who say they are. That certainly is true now, even more so because we're often now recording the live event. So there's an opportunity to watch it later when it works for your schedule. So free just continues to not match registration numbers. But I really encourage you, it's so useful to do recordings of all of our programs. We record everything now because we can, because the cloud is cheap enough, data is cheap enough to save now, that it's so valuable to be able to share it with people online, on our website, on social media. It's a way to keep our brand fresh with new marketing content and materials, but also we watch ourselves so that we can get better at presenting and better at speaking and using the actual tools that we're using. So I really encourage you to do that. For staging, so you're online and you're on stage, and if you look behind me, you can see, some of you probably have already been looking behind me to see, oh, what's on her wall, what's around. Do that, have a set design, have your favorite art, show who you are behind you, or use a virtual background. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a quick tip. If you click on the little at the bottom or the top, depending on where you have put them, your stop and start video little icon, you should see a little caret, a little arrow. If you click on that arrow, you can choose a virtual background. You can also choose a video filter. If you have done your updates, oh my gosh, y'all, you can put yourself on stage, as I have just done. You can put on a mask. You can do none of those things. You can go into, you can add eyebrows to yourself. You can make them purple. You can't see them because of my glasses. There you go. See those purple eyebrows? You can add a mustache. Yes, look, I am seeing people have fun with this stuff, y'all. Life is too short to not have fun with all of these sort of things. And then don't forget to go back to none as you are leaving those little things. But you can use, there are virtual backgrounds that are already made up for you. So you can go, I can suddenly be in San Francisco, and you can add any picture of your own behind you as well. So I again encourage you to play around with all of these kinds of fun things to set the stage for what you're trying to do. From a practical matter, if you're using a laptop, you need to put it on some books. Put it on something. You need to get your head into the top third of your screen. So raise your laptop up and check out your image. The other thing that's in that video section, if you go to video settings, you can see there's this magic setting called Touch Up My Appearance. Now I'm gonna touch up my appearance even more. Look, didn't I get more beautiful? I don't know, but you can see, you can play with these things. They also, there's a button for adjusting for low light, which may be helpful. We'll talk about lighting next. But all of these are things that can help you feel confident and have fun, and you can share with other people all these fun things that you can do as well. The other thing is using mute when you're presenting and when you're not presenting. You know, you're going to want to be judicious in the way that you use your voice. So keep it real, but also be respectful of the experience that you're trying to have. If you haven't done this, again, click on the 3 dots in your little square where you renamed yourself. You can also edit your profile picture. I'm going to stop my video for just a second, only so that I can show you. Maybe I'm going to stop my video. There we go. That I have a picture that's already loaded in. So some of you have done that. It just is nice. It's an extra little thing that makes it possible for you to not disappear completely and people still know who you are. And it's a nice thing to personalize the experience. And as we already did before, renaming yourself, adding info, where you're from, what your hobby is, any of that sort of thing that sort of helps personalize the experience makes a difference. Lighting. So don't sit in front of a window. That is the #1 thing, because you just get totally washed out. But do, don't sit behind a window. What am I trying to say? But do add the lighting in front of you. So having light bouncing onto your face means that you don't have as many shadows. You don't have to spend a fortune to do any of this. I have a lamp that's on the other side of my desk that is shining right on me. I have windows over this way that are also shining on me. You can tell that because I've got some weird shadows a little bit. One thing that you can do that is a really simple trick is if you can turn your overhead light into a pendant light, if it happens to be over your desk, that will provide beautiful light over you in a nice way at a lower level, or put 2 desk lamps on either side of your screen. that totally works. You can, you don't have to spend money. If you need to spend money, doing LED bulbs is probably the most important thing that you can do, because they do simulate daylight best and they're dimmable, so you can really play with the light itself. There are cheap circle lights that you can use, some people use those for selfie movies and things like that on your phone. You just put them around the camera of your computer and it'll be fine. And Katie, if you don't mind throwing into the chat, if you haven't already, this is a great little, relatively recent, but not the last month recent, article about creating a great setup for your home at any budget. There's all sorts of things that you can do. You don't need to overthink this, because again, you don't have to be perfect, but you want to be presentable. Audio tips. I mentioned this already, I know. You want to record yourself and listen to your audio. If you are having a bunch of rustling noises because you have a cheap headphone and mic set, you're going to want to adjust that. It's really irritating to us as participants when sound from the presenter is wonky. So you want to get that worked out. I highly recommend thinking about doing a lavalier mic. That's for your, you put it on your collar or on your shoulder, wherever you need it to. But that means that you could walk around. And for some of us, we're used to presenting while standing. So there is nothing that stops you, because we're, most of us are at home. From standing, you just need to move the camera so that you can stand up and get that energy. Don't forget to turn off your notifications and your phones when you're presenting. That has happened to me personally. It's very embarrassing when it happens, when you're the presenter and all of a sudden your phone starts ringing and you can't figure out how to turn it off. The other thing is to watch reactions. Even when you're presenting, if you can try and pay attention to the people who are on camera, it allows you to know when to shut up, when to let other people talk, because you can start to read their body language. And don't forget that you, as a Zoom host, you can mute other people. So if someone has a dog barking and they didn't realize that they weren't muted, you can just take care of that without anybody even knowing. You can just mute them on your own. And finally, silence isn't awful. Even in meetings that we did in person, silence always feels awkward, but it is really a powerful elixir, honestly, at this moment in time as well. One final thing, I don't think we're going to have time to do this because we want to get you into some breakout rooms, but Zoom has some new features. One of them is that you can play background music. So for those of you who have tried screen sharing, if you click on your screen sharing, you won't be able to share your screen, but click on your screen sharing little caret, you can see that you have different options. You have basic, you have advanced, and you have files now. So there are a lot of new ways that you can share. If you go under the advanced screen sharing, what is awesome is there is a little button that allows you to share just your computer music. So you can have background noise playing, which is fantastic. So finally, don't forget that when you're on Zoom, the same thing that suck about live presentations suck about Zoom presentations. And I'm breaking a bunch of those rules right now, like including these slides are terrible, but I had to get you information. These are not great slides. You should be using images and few words, which normally I would do, but we're trying to get a whole bunch of information for you that you can also download later this presentation. So it'll have all of these words for you. But what we're going to do now is something that I highly recommend, which is doing breakout rooms. Ooh, I was really nervous there for a second. I was frozen. It looked like to me. We're using breakout rooms. Zoom has really upped their game about breakout rooms. So Katie is going to open breakout rooms for us. And if you haven't done this before, it used to be that we had to assign you to a breakout room in order for you to go somewhere. and have a smaller conversation. But now, because of the way that Zoom has changed things, we can open breakout rooms, and anybody can choose a breakout room to go into. So Katie, if you want to open those rooms, I'm not seeing them yet.
Are they not opening?
Maybe it's just me. Does anyone see breakout rooms?
No.
No.
Hmm.
See, here's one of those glitchy moments. So this is the moment of grace.
I wonder is this something that was only available if you updated the most recent version of Zoom, Beth? Because we have a few folks who are able to join them. I can see a few people popping in.
Oh, you know what you might need to do? If you have a whole bunch of things on your taskbar, you might have to click on more, and that's where I'm finding it. It was not popping up into my populated area, but when I clicked on more, I found that I could click on breakout rooms, and now I can see all of them. So you all should be able to either see in your taskbar, control bar, the breakout room button, or click on more and you should be able to get to it. So you should be able to see that there's 4 breakout rooms, and some people have gone to them. So the way that you go to a breakout room is if you pick a room that you want to go to, and you sort of scroll off to the right-hand side of it, you'll see join pops up, and you can go to that room and you'll suddenly be in this Star Trek-y moment of being in a room with some other folks. And what's awesome is this is how you can do small group conversations. So for those of you who are doing workshops, this is a saving grace of everything, because we can have conversations. We can still be talking. We can have a cohort of 20 people, but we can divide into groups of 5 and have much more intimate conversations, which means there's not just a talking head like me right now, but you can go and talk. When you are in a breakout room, actually, Katie, why don't we go ahead and close the breakout rooms, because I don't want anyone to miss this part that I'm going to share.
Okay, give it about 6 seconds and everyone should be back.
Awesome.
All right, I think we're all back.
Cool. So that is my favorite Star Trek-y moment to do, is to use the breakout rooms. If you pre-assign people to a breakout room, they will like magically disappear. And then when you close them, they magically come back. It's very exciting. But what's super cool in those breakout rooms is you can use all of the same functions that we're using out here in those breakout rooms without having a host or anything like that. So you can share your screen. You can use a whiteboard. Using a whiteboard, if you haven't done that, is so amazing. When you share screen, you have the option to share a whiteboard, and as long as everybody clicks on the button called annotate, you can all write and type on the same page together. So you can do a brainstorm, you can save it. Yes, look, people are writing right now on my slide. Annotate is a beautiful thing. You can do it on top of slides. See the stickers? Yes, put those hearts on there. So that is a really powerful thing. When we're doing classes, this is a huge way for people to share work. So for instance, if we have somebody working on a business model, they're trying to figure out how to do it, they're trying to figure out how to go online, they can actually type and share with each other and give real-time feedback in a much more meaningful way. Also, all of this that you're doing right here is savable. So you can save, normally, this isn't a whiteboard, so you may not be able to save this exactly, but you can save any whiteboard to your computer, which means you can save all those notes anytime. Also, when you're in a breakout room, you can record what's happening in your breakout room. The cool thing about that is that the big room isn't recording the breakout rooms. So you can have totally private conversations in a breakout room, but you also can record those. And finally, you need to have a break every hour, which is where we're headed to in just a minute. We have used we've used everything, man. Oh, the one other thing I want to remind you of, when you're on the phone, there's a safe driving mode. Use it, like, come on. But also, you still really can use your phone in a meaningful way on Zoom. You can share screen from your phone. It's pretty amazing. That's new that is a thing now. And *6 mutes and unmutes you, and *9 allows you to raise your hand, even though you don't have access to all that participant stuff. But please be aware that portable devices, so your iPads, your tablets, and your phones, do not have the power of the Zoom app, essentially, that powers your computer or your laptop. So if you're going to be hosting, don't do it on an iPad. It doesn't work, and you definitely can't control the breakout rooms, so it'll be a problem for you. So I'm going to take a quick temperature check to see whether you're ready. Look at this beautiful picture, y'all. To see how everybody's doing, and whether you want me to keep babbling on, or whether you just want to keep doing stickers, or whether we should move into Q&A. I've got a couple of slides that are just to tell you the story about the Tamarack Foundation in West Virginia, and how they used breakout rooms to do an emerging artist gallery opening. The Nelsonville Music Festival, right, in Ohio, y'all, did an amazing job of doing an online version of their music festival, and a lounge, and of course workshop examples. But we also could go straight to Q&A.
So Beth, can I pop in here really quick for just a minute? I just wanted to remind everybody that I know we're coming up on our hour. We are happy to stay and keep going, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time and just remind you that if you do have to leave, we are recording. And so a recording will go out to everyone who registered. We'll send that to you next week. It'll be available on our website. So no worries about that. And then if I've been recording who has been asking questions. So if for some reason you have to log off and we don't get to your question before you log off, we can follow up offline. So I will be quiet now and let you guys decide what path you want to take.
So let's do a show of hands about whether we want me to go through the examples, or whether we want to go straight to Q&A. How do we do that? Let's do thumbs up for Q&A. Katie, you have to be the monitor. I can't see them all.
Okay. Looks like quite a few thumbs ups.
And how about clapping hands if you want more examples before Q&A?
Ooh. Oh, I think we're going to have to do some examples.
Okay. Then I will continue on. I promise I'll be quick, and we will definitely get to Q&A. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. But we moved, this is funny. I think, Katie, you do have the power to remove, I think, all of the designs, but I'm not sure. You can look for that while I talk.
Let me see if I can figure that out.
So all of our programs were online. We do arts focused professional development that is designed to help artists and communities. Look at you, Katie, you figured it all out. And we actually designed our programs originally thinking, oh, let's design something that can be online. That'll be so meaningful. We can be in every small town and it won't have to cost much. And then we found that the work really needed to be personal. And so we moved everything to be in person. And lo and behold, 7 years later, we've had to move everything online. So you never know where your programming and your ideation will lead to you. So we went from having very intimate programs to this, where all of our programs, and you can, some of you may know some of the people who are in this picture, because we have a cohort of folks in Ohio who have been doing our Shift workshop and our Evolve program. We started in May and ran through just a couple of weeks ago. And everybody who was on that screen, some of them are facilitators, but many of them are participants. And there were there were additional people who are not on that picture who participated, all did a business plan for their new creative venture that in some cases was a brand new dance company. The Nelsonville Emporium, some of you may know about the Nelsonville Emporium, is retooling itself post-COVID. So they did that work together. And what we found is that we could move all of our programming online. And as long as we kept a break every hour, and that we could spread our facilitation amongst multiple people. So we had 3 different people talking instead of just one person talking, which made it easier for the facilitators. It made it way more engaging for the participants. And then really doubling down on a principle that we already had in our programming, which was to have as much work happening collaboratively as possible. So having our participants work in small cohorts together, helping each other with their mission statement, their vision statement, their budgets, all of that work they were doing as small teams. So they're invested in each other's work in a really deep way. So it's been really positive for that. For art, visual arts, the Tamarack Foundation is an arts service organization in West Virginia. They serve the artist needs for professional development that were originally identified coming out of the Tamarack facility that some of you may be familiar with. It was one of the first big investments that a local government made into essentially turning a rest area into an amazing art space and wonderful place to sell work. So the Tamarack Foundation does professional development, and they have this wonderful emerging artist program, and they couldn't figure out what to do. Well, they moved everything online, and here was the invitation that they sent out, which was to prepare for a party and not a meeting, but we're going to be on Zoom. And I love how they, pitched it out. You got dressed up, you got yourself something wonderful to eat and drink. And then they did some really smart stuff. They filmed B-roll of people walking to the gallery, because the show actually really is hung at the Taylor bookstore. And they filmed people walking so that when they joined the Zoom room and you arrived at the party, there was video playing. So it was like you were walking up to the gallery. And then they had a room for each of the emerging artists. So each emerging artist had their own breakout room with their name on it. And they had a board member or a staff person with each of the artists, because these are emerging artists. So it helped them network with the people who were going to come in to see their work. In each of those breakout rooms, they had a slideshow going of the work that was in the show. And of course, the artist was there to talk about their work as well. They had 80 people sit through their opening presentation and then go to all of the breakout rooms. They had one room where they also had live music. So you could go and hang out and listen to a little bit of fun music while you were also doing the show itself. And then they had one final room that was the if you're lost room, which was a great idea. So it was sort of like, if you can't figure out where to go, you knew to go to the essentially the cloak room or whatever, the info desk. So they had it really well organized and definitely took advantage of all of the power of Zoom. Nelsonville Music Festival, I know many of you know about, an amazing event that had to go crazy and go online, and so they did. And here is a wonderful picture of some people in Nelsonville watching on their big screen TV in their backyard, watching the festival, still participating. This was another great example of a partnership with the Nelsonville Music Festival and a university. So to be able to work with students who were learning about videography made this possible at all. So it was an incredible learning experience for everybody involved, but particularly for those students to really be able to get experience filming, editing, figuring out how to make this work was fantastic. And it worked. There were people watching all over the country, and they raised a nice amount of money too. So it worked really well. And finally, one other thing to remind you of, this is in my neighborhood, is that just because we have to go online doesn't mean that we need to abandon all thought of having events outside. We just have to reimagine how they're happening and be prepared for going online as well. And part of that has to do with our ability to communicate about what is appropriate and what is safe. And the more that we can use our virtual tools to encourage that, the better. You know, all this cost was some paint. We paid the band, but we had 75 people come to a concert in a park where they knew they had to wear a mask. They knew that they had to stay in their circle. But, you know, they were thrilled to do it because they felt safe doing it, and they're hungry for what we have to offer as artists. So, oh, a lounge. Wait, I got to tell you one more piece before you leave, before we go to do Q&A. So the Artists Thrive conference was my first experience of doing a lounge on Zoom. So the Artists Thrive folks, I know you've been introduced to them. Some of you hired a facilitator to host the lounge who is a DJ, a bartender and a DJ. So he went and set up his camera at a bar that he got permission to be in that was closed. But so he had, you know, the liquor all behind him and everything. And he had a playlist going. So when people showed up into the Zoom room, because it was just like this, y'all, it was the same thing. I swear to you, it was like being in a bar. It was the craziest thing. The energy was right. The bartender knew how to ask people questions. And because people didn't know each other necessarily, but we knew we were all artists, we started talking. And, you know, at some point we were dancing and we were making requests. Some artists would then bring in work. There were sales made while we were in the lounge. And because it was a 3-day event, by day 3, everyone in the conference had heard about how awesome the lounge was. So it was packed on the last night. And we had one of our young music artists who was also playing the tech for the bartender, did a little concert, and we all Venmo'd him some money to tip the musician. So there's so many ways that we can make this fun, make this an experience that reminds us why we do what we do, and helps all the people who are struggling so much, and they're so scared, as we all are, but they're scared to be online because it seems like it's going to be awful, and this doesn't have to be awful. Okay, my work here is done. So thank you for the opportunity to present. I hope this was lots of good information, and now we will definitely do Q&A as Katie directs us. Do you want me to stop the share, Katie?
Sure, yeah, if you want to do that, and we can just see your face there, nice and there on the screen. Oh my gosh, Beth, that was amazing. I feel like I learned so much. It sounds like everybody else did too in the comments. Again, I just want to let people know, and if you do need to pop off, that's totally fine. We're going to continue to record the Q&A session, and so that will be posted as part of the recording. So that was amazing. Thank you so much. Let's get right to questions. This one goes back to the Zoom polling feature. So someone is asking, when people participate, do you see the submitters' names and email?
So you can choose that, which is an awesome thing. So when you're doing the Zoom polling, you can choose whether to have the participants being polled be anonymous or not. So depending on whether, you know, how big your group is, like we definitely didn't want to have everybody's name associated with those basic questions we were asking. So we purposefully chose the anonymous version of that. So you can control that.
Great. And then somebody asked earlier, oh, when do you set it up? When do you set a poll up?
So you have to set it up before your meeting. That's a wonky part. I do use some other polling functions on occasion, and honestly, depending on the size of the group, you may just go old school and just be like, okay, raise your hand, put your dang video on and raise your hand if you like this or that. There's nothing wrong with that. But the polling ones on Zoom, if you do it, you have to set it up ahead of the meeting, and then it saves it. So I have a whole bank of polls that sort of live in my, I don't know, Zoom account, and they're all sitting there whenever I open a meeting. So if I want to pull up a poll that I've used before, it's sitting there, which is nice.
Kind of going on that, we've had a couple of people ask about this too. Breakout rooms. Do we need to set those up in advance? How does that work?
Okay, so breakout rooms are actually easier than you would think, as Katie can attest to. So you can set them up ahead of time. You can also, if you have people register ahead of time, like the Ohio Arts Council did, we could actually have put you all into breakout rooms before the meeting even started, because we already had your email address that's associated with you coming into this meeting. And, you know, maybe sometimes you want to use that. Mostly what I find is that I need to be a little more spontaneous with who needs to be in what room if I'm running a workshop, because maybe I need to separate some people who need to not be together anymore. And so I need to, you know, do that on the fly. Breakout rooms you can set up anytime. You don't have to set them up ahead of time. You can rename them at any time. And this is a very new function. Within the last month, you can experience now what you did today, which is that anybody can go into any room. That used to not be the case at all. So they've really amped up. And I just have to say, even though they're terrible communicators, kudos to Zoom. They are continuing to listen to what we're all telling them works and doesn't work, and they are definitely upping their game. So that really was a game changer. The Tamarack Foundation, when they originally planned that gallery opening event, that Zoom breakout room function wasn't active in that way. So they were prepared to make everybody who showed up at that gallery opening into a co-host, so that then they could move in. You know, it was like this really tiresome way to make it happen. Zoom is not elegant, but it is highly functional once you figure out how to use it.
I'm muted, mistake. So building on that, I just wanted to mention, Beth mentioned Artists Thrive, and thanks to Artists Thrive, we have 2 really great Zoom guides that we will be sharing with all of you. They're super informative. They kind of take you step by step from the role of meeting organizer, and I think there's one for meeting attendee too, right, Beth?
Yep.
And they are amazing, and so I'll make sure to include those on the resources page on our website. So just to clarify for breakout rooms, somebody said, does that mean, as far as the self-selecting, does that mean that anyone can opt into another breakout room without the host making that happen?
Yes.
It's really exciting.
So it's good. It's also, it means you have to work, you know, you got to think that through, because people can wander. In the work that I do as non-social, so workshop land, I've never had anybody like, you know, want to leave and go to another group and just be disruptive. That's not the kind of spirit of the programming that we do, but it's super helpful for imagining doing interactive social events, anything where people are trying to sort of learn and do something together.
Any tips about presenting live music on Zoom?
So yes, go for it. But it is, I would say it's more complicated. It really, this is a place where, in my opinion, you have to get, this is a really hard perfectionist moment. And as a, as a trained but not professional musician myself, I totally get it. My husband is a musician, and he's been using Zoom. One of his audiences, he was playing music for nursing homes, and so he would play, and it was really hard to get comfortable with the quality of sound and the quality of the experience for the person on the other end. So you, as an artist, I think the harder part is getting comfortable with the new lack of control that we have. But I assure you that the audience doesn't care. We're so hungry for those live experiences. I'm seeing more and more of them popping up regularly. The ones that you see that are highly produced, where you have multiple people playing at the same time, those are not happening, from different screens. Those are not happening live. Those take a lot of effort, and you have to mute yourself. I don't recommend trying that out of the gate. But having socially distanced people and somebody with a camera, you can do it. You can totally do it, but it's not going to be the same quality as you're used to, but it will warm the hearts and souls of all of us. So please, I think the more we push the envelope, and I think that's part of what I hope you're hearing and being inspired to do, is we've got to push, we got to innovate, we got to just, it is what it is. So we've got to, I hate to use that phrase anymore, but we have to keep pushing forward, because we're part of what's going to save this experience. We're helping people get through this moment, and so we have to let go of our perfectionist side and really get to people where they are.
That is so true. That is so true. In the interest of time, I'm going to go with one more question here. Do you have you had mentioned the closed captioning function for Zoom, and that we can work, you can work with third parties and things like that for closed captioning. Do you have any recommendations for closed captioning services?
You know what? I can't remember the app. But I'll make sure that Katie gets it. In the Zoom guides that Artists Thrive put together, they have some recommendations that I've used, and I know they're fine. But what's super cool is if you go into your video settings, actually it's your audio settings, I'm sorry. Oops, sorry. I turned myself off in lieu of the carrot. In your audio and video settings, you can assign someone to be your closed captioner, and there are actually companies that are providing closed captioning live. So you can hire people to be typing. They usually ask for they ask if it's a presentation for your slides ahead of time, so they know sort of where things are going. But you can hire people to do that, or you can use these phone apps as well. So there's lots of options. But I mean, from an accessibility perspective, Zoom is actually exciting. This is helping us get to a better level of being able to reach our audiences who we frankly have not been doing a good job of reaching. So I encourage us to take advantage of that. And I'll make sure to find out what that, there's a really good one that's a phone app.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, Molly says Rev is a good one. You have to subscribe to it though. So Rev, that's REV, if anyone didn't catch that in the chat. But Okay, this was amazing. We may have to have you come back again because I feel like there's so much more left to ask. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody for taking the time to join us today. I know we're all kind of experiencing some Zoom fatigue these days, but I think I think we can all agree that Beth did an amazing job of showing us how this can be super engaging and not just sitting and staring at a screen for 2 hours. So thank you all for taking the time to join us. Beth, thank you so much.
Well, and
we're so glad to have you.
It has been a pleasure, and a shout out to some of my Kentucky friends. I see some of you in there. So it's a delight. And you know, that's what's so cool about this, y'all, is that it's so wonderful that we can be together when we're not together. And I think if we can see those silver linings and remind ourselves that this is part of our role right now, is to help other people see those silver linings and help bring that to them. And using this technology makes that possible.
Wonderful. Well, I think that does it for today. Like I said, the recording will be available early next week, along with all of the wonderful resources that Beth provided today. So again, thank you guys all so much. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you all next time. Thanks.